From North Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We just heard from the gentleman from South Carolina that the purpose of this bill was to make sure that the use of our strategic reserve was confined to instances in which there was a national emergency. The purpose of this amendment is very simple. It is to make sure that if we are going to restrict releases from our strategic reserve, that it have an exception for national security. That's it. Very simple. If you were going to tie the president's hands to respond to an energy crisis, at least include language that allows for a swift response in the event of a threat to our national security. At least do that. I understand the concern about the use of our reserve. I do not understand lack of concern for a future situation which could call for its use when our national security is at stake. This is a simple amendment. It only adds language with respect to national security. This should be a bipartisan concern, and I welcome bipartisan support. I yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I rise in opposition to this amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Once again, this amendment would further allow the President to abuse the SPR by draining it without declaring a national emergency under the Emergency Policy Conservation Act. Given the ability to once again use the SPR for political purposes, and that is wrong. It's set aside for national emergencies, true national emergencies. Hurricanes hit the coast. We just saw one in Florida this year. We all remember Hurricane Katrina. We've got adversaries threatening around the world. We need the SPR full. We don't need to be released to influence an election. We need it there for national emergencies. This amendment would further allow the President to abuse it. Statute's clear, and emergency triggers to use the SPR are very well defined. The law requires the President to declare that a severe energy supply interruption exists. The only reason a severe supply interruption exists is because of their policies. The policy of the Biden administration that took oil and gas production in this nation off the table. We have American resources here. We're blessed in this nation with abundant natural resources, but we're cursed by liberal politicians who don't want America to be energy independent. They don't want us to be energy dominant. They want to take those resources off the table for production, to increase supply, to meet demand, to lower prices for consumers, manufacturers, and people across America. The statute defines a supply interruption as follows. An emergency situation exists, and there's a significant reduction in supply, which is of significant scope and duration. There was no emergency situation existing when the President withdrew oil from the SPR. A severe increase in the price of petroleum products has resulted from an emergency. Where was the emergency? Yeah, we had higher prices because supply was low due to the policies of the administration that took oil and gas production off the table. He created the emergency, if you want to call it an emergency. Such price increase will likely, number three, such price increase is likely to cause a major adverse impact on the national economy. There's a solution. Drill here, drill now. Produce American energy. The SPR is a critical national security asset. We've said that over and over and over and over and over on this side. It's a national asset paid for by the taxpayers, set aside for use of this nation in time of a real emergency. A real emergency. The SPR is a critical national security asset. Should only have been utilized in accordance with the law. This amendment would affect that. And so I urge my colleagues to vote no, and I yield back.
This is the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
And I yield to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Jackson.
The gentleman from South Carolina concluded his remarks by saying this amendment would affect that, provided no specification for that. Look, folks, this was just about national security. We didn't get 2 words in response to the substance of this amendment. We got a bunch of platitudes that were completely unrelated. I was under the assumption, given everything we had heard about national emergencies and national security, that making sure that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve could be used for national security would at least be bipartisan. Or, if not, there would be a good reason as to why that exception should not exist. We didn't get a one. We got a speech about hurricanes. We got a speech about other uses for oil. I hear you. I'm on board. This is national security. And the fact that you had no response whatsoever tells me your bill isn't serious. That this bill is about messaging. That you're looking to tie any future president's hands in a way that is fundamentally reckless. If this bill were serious, you would take national security more seriously. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Members are reminded to address their remarks to the chair.